न सन्नासन्न सदसन् धर्मो निर्वर्तते यदा कथं निर्वर्तको हेतुर् एवं सति युज्यते.
Nasanna sadasan dharmo nirvartate yada katam nirvartako hetur evam sati yujyate. MMK chapter 1 verse 7. For when beyond the existent, beyond the non-existent, beyond existence and non-existence, a dharma is happening, how is it workable in such a situation that there is a root cause causing it to happen?
Analambana evayam sandharma upadishyate athana lambane dharme uta alambanam punaha.
Anarambana evayam sandharma upadishyate atanarambane dharme kuta arambanam punaha. MMK chapter 1 verse 8. This real and present dharma, one is taught, is utterly beyond objective support. What purpose then, when a dharma is beyond objective support, does objective support still serve?
Anutpanneshu dharmeshu nirodho nopapadyate nanantaramato yuktam niruddhe pratyayasakaha.
Anutpaneshu dharmeshu nirodho nopapadyate nanantaramato yuktam niruddhe pratyayasakaha. MMK chapter 1 verse 9. Where dharmas are not arisen, termination is not possible. On those grounds, the gapless is not workable. And where termination has prevailed, what cause is there?
Bhavanam nihi svabhavanam na satta vidyate yataha satidamasmin bhavati etannaivopapadyate.
Bhavanam nisvabhavanam nasata vidyate yataha satidam asmin bhavati tietannaivopapadyate. MMK chapter 1 verse 10. Where the actuality is not found of freedom of things from self-existence, it is not at all possible to say, this being so, that is. So I've taken those 4 verses all together in the spirit of all together one after the other. So I'll go through them one by one, explaining the Sanskrit word by word later on in different videos. But I wanted to take all 4 together because what's being negated here is the 4 pratyaya of verse 3, which is to say, in verse 3 it's not sure whether the speaker is Nagarjuna or the opponent, but either way he's saying that as non-empty things, those 4 causes, which is hetu, the root cause, arambana, the objective support, anantaram, the gapless, the immediate cause, the proximate cause, and adipata, the state of being in command, or the dominant cause, the predominant cause. So those 4, as things unto themselves, don't work. They're not in practice. If we rely on non-empty things, they're not workable. Nayujyate, they don't work in practice. In practice, we want to base ourselves on the truth of action, the fact that in all being empty, everything can change by our action. We're not stuck in a world of non-empty things. So in order to clarify that, he goes through, in these 4 verses, he goes through the 4 causes, so-called, one by one, and negates them one by one. So in verse 7, he's looking at hetu, a root cause. How is it workable when a dharma is happening that there is a root cause causing it to happen? So this verse fits in beautifully with Carlo Rovelli's discoveries, and relying on Carlo Rovelli's vocabulary, I translated this verse, because originally I translated Dharmo Nirvartate as the Dharma is unfolding. See, Dharma being singular, it could be a Dharma, in other words, a happening, or it could be the Dharma, which means Sadharma, the wonderful universe of which we're a part. So both of them are beyond existence, beyond non-existence, and beyond both existence and non-existence, as the Buddha will explain in detail in chapter 15 in his teaching to Katyayana. So what verse 7 is saying is when a dharma is happening, okay, so it's not a thing like a stone existing or a thing like a stone not existing, and neither is it a combination of a thing like a stone existing and non-existing. It's a happening, like a kiss, like an action. A dharma is happening. In that reality, when the action is going on, how is it workable in such a situation that there is a hetu, a root cause, causing it to happen? You see, how is it possible in that world of empty dharmas like kisses that there's a stone stuck there causing it all to happen? That's what he's asking. So in verse 8, the second of the 4 verses, he similarly negates the concept of objective support, arambana. So the first line says, I am sandharma, which again, it could be, it's singular, it could be referring to a happening. So this real and present, sat means real or present, real and present, I've translated it. Sat means being, existing. But in this case, it doesn't mean existing, it means real, it means happening. You know, it doesn't mean existing, it means happening. So real and present. Sandharma, real and present dharma, could be real and present everything, or it could be a happening, like me talking, or like a tree growing, or a baby being born. Those are happenings. Nigel Owen blowing his whistle to start a rugby match, you know, that's the beginning of a happening. So we've got Sandharma means real and present dharma, and I am means this. So this, or it can mean here and now. So it could be a real and present dharma, here and now, like us trying to understand MMK is a real and present dharma, here and now. Not only trying to understand it intellectually, but sitting in lotus and listening to the recitation of Professor Kashinath Nyalpane, so we're getting a sense of what the sound of Nagarjuna's original words was. So this is a happening, not only an intellectual thing. Also, I am Sandharma could mean this wonderful universe, as in the Lotus Sutra, Saddharma Pundarika, the wonderful lotus of the universe. So in the Lotus Sutra, the word is Saddharma. So Sa is the same as San. Here, San and Dharma, the text we're relying on, are separated. San Dharma. So it means the real and present Dharma. But equally, it could be read Saddharma as a compound, Saddharma, and that means in Japanese Shobo, as in Shobo Genzo, or it means Myoho, as in Myoho Renge Kyo, the wonderful Dharma. And Xiaoyong Ye points out that in Chinese, the characters we read in Japanese, Shinjitsu Mimyoho, the real subtle Dharma, or the real wonderful Dharma. So the Chinese translation indicates that the original Sanskrit was in fact Saddharma. So in that case, you'd want to translate Dharma with a capital D, possibly. This real and present Dharma one is taught is utterly beyond objective support. So for an example of that teaching, a good example in China was when a monk asked Master Joshu what was Bodhidharma's intention in coming from India to China. And Master Joshu says, the big tree in the garden. And the monk complains, don't teach me with objective things, because his experience is always asking the teacher idealistic questions, and the teacher's always saying, don't be idealistic, wake up to objective reality. So he complains to Master Joshu, don't teach me with objective things. And Joshu replies, I'm not teaching you with objective things. And so the monk asks again, well, okay, then what was Bodhidharma's intention in coming from China? And Joshu says again, the cedar tree in the garden. So what Joshu's saying there is the cedar tree in the garden is not a thing like a stone. That's how you conceive it. The cedar tree in the garden is a happening. It's an empty happening. It's a Dharma happening now. So when a Dharma's happening now, how is it that there's a thing like a stone, a root cause, or an acorn causing it to happen? And so in this verse, this real and present Dharma one is taught is utterly beyond objective support. So that's the point of that story with Joshu and the monk. That's what we've been taught. A Dharma, a happening, is beyond our kind of materialistic scientific conception of objective support. Having said that, if you go back to verse 3, as I was saying, the effort I'm making now is supported by things that had got nothing to do with me, like the people who invented the software that I'm relying on now, the money I've been given or I earned, the money that I've been provided with over the years, the food that I bought from the supermarket that was grown by the farmer. So it's important. I think that's why I'm keeping verse 3 in black font. I'm not putting it in the red font of the opponent. I'm accepting it as Nagarjuna's teaching, because it's important to recognise that oneself is dependent on objective support at the level of conventional truth. But now we've moved on to the level of ultimate truth, and it's at that level in which he's saying this real and present Dharma, this ultimately real truth, is utterly beyond objective support. And then we move on to the third verse, and he cites now the third pratyaya, which is anantara, the gapless. And so the gapless, conventionally understood, it means the gap between subject and object, or the gap between cause and effect. So there is no gap between this and that, no gap between subject and object, no gap between this action and the succeeding moment. So there's an immediacy. So the immediate cause, the proximate cause, Deontay Wilder throws the right hook, poof, and the immediate cause is Tyson Fury's temporarily knocked out. So that's kind of immediacy. So that kind of understanding is at the level of conventional truth, because at the level of ultimate truth, Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury are not separate from each other. There is no separate Deontay Wilder and no separate Tyson Fury. There is no place where Deontay Wilder ends and Tyson Fury begins. So that's why this verse says, where dharmas are not arisen, termination is not possible. So when Deontay Wilder's not arisen and Tyson Fury is not arisen, the end point where Deontay Wilder's punch ends and Tyson Fury's knockout begins, it's not valid to speak in those terms. Termination is not possible. Cessation is not possible. On those grounds, the gapless is not workable. Okay? That's exactly what it means. On the grounds of there being no end point and no start point, you can't speak of there being no gap. The whole concept of a gap doesn't arise. Alternatively, if you do speak of cessation, of termination, in that case, there is no cause. So it's like when suffering ends, the truth of cessation of suffering. It's a situation in which termination has prevailed. When, having suffered long and hard, we stop suffering by going in the right direction. That's when cessation has prevailed, or termination has prevailed. We've stopped suffering by getting on with some job. In that situation, what cause is there? So what is denied here is not in this verse 9. Is not only the gapless, but pratyaya in general, which is what happened back in verse 6 when he said, Kim pratyayena, satascha pratyayena kim, and to the real and present, what use is a cause? So it's the same thing. He's negating, in verse 6, he negated causation, not causation, but the idea of a non-empty cause, the notion of a non-empty cause. He negated it in the round. Kim pratyayena means what use is a cause? I was trying to think of an example, and on the spot I couldn't think of one, but what I should have said was Kim vitarkena. What use is an idea? What use is a thought? Kim vitarkena. That's where you use Kim in the instrumental. Kim vitarkena. What's the use of worrying? What's the use of thinking? What's the use of a thought? So when we stop worrying, when we realise Kim vitarkena, what's the point of all this thinking? In that situation, nirude, that's in cessation. I've translated it, where termination has prevailed. In that situation, pratyaya kaha, what cause is there? There is no non-empty cause, because in that situation, we're in the world of empty happenings. In the world of empty happenings, there is no thing there is no cause like a stone. And then the fourth of the four verses take some thinking about. It took me a while to realise that implicit in verse 10 is the negation of adipata, the dominant condition, the dominant cause. Because the dominant cause is implicit in the teaching Satidam asmin bhavati. Satidam asmin bhavati. So asmin is locative and sati is locative. So asmin sati means this being. In other words, this being so. Sati is locative of sat, which we've translated as real and present, but it's originally the present participle of as, to be, to exist. So sati means being. Asmin, this. Both those are locative, so it's where this is, or this being so. And idam bhavati, idam means this in nominative. It's the same word as asmin, but nominative. And bhavati means to be or to become. Idam bhavati means this is. So when you have idam twice, it means this and that. So this being so, that is. And that phrase is what the Buddha said, for example, in chapter 1 of Udana, Exalted Verses. He says, chapter 1, Bodhivago, he says, this being so, that is. From the arising of this, that arises. That is to say, with ignorance as causal grounds, there are samskaras. In Pali, iti imasmin sati idam hoti. I won't try and pronounce the rest in Sanskrit. You can find it on ancientbuddhisttexts.net. Udana. So the point is that the Buddha, that's what the Buddha said about causation. Ultimately, that's the truth. What the Buddha said, the truth of causation. This being so, that is. But it was only possible for the Buddha to say that in the world of empty happenings. So where that actuality is not found, where the actuality of empty happenings is not found, in other words, where the actuality is not found of freedom of things from self-existence, in that situation it is not possible at all to say, this being so, that is. So the Buddha did say that. The Buddha did affirm causation, but what he was affirming was how our actions change everything. Empty dharmas change everything, and empty dharmas are changed by everything. So this is also the message of chapter 24. Everything being empty, we can establish the body-mind, do practice, realise the true meaning of nirvana, which was different from our original conception, and work towards the awakening that the Buddha realised under the Bodhi tree. If things weren't empty, everything would be stuck in stone, and that kind of effort wouldn't be possible. So those 4 verses are much less dry than you'd think if you read the explanations of academics about what Nagarjuna is saying there. Yeah, they're all about action. That's the key word, the key verse to understanding the whole of this chapter is goes back to verse 4. Kriya na pratyayavati, na pratyayavati kriya. So, yep, 4 verses which are negating non-empty causes, and implicit in that negation is the affirmation of action. I'll now go through each verse one by one on separate videos and explain the Sanskrit and the English word by word.